behind Starlight Stitching Co. And today we are going to be finishing the Whimsy Christmas Biscornu. So here's what it looks like finished. We have our whimsical trees and our stacks of presents with the little cross stitches on the side. And on the bottom we have our snowflakes and candy canes and holly. And if we tip it all the way upside down, you can see that it says Merry Christmas around the center. And here's a good look at the top. This was so much fun to stitch. It stitched up way faster than I had expected it to. And I am so pleased to get to share this with you. So let's work together to get your Whimsy Christmas. Okay, so now we are going to finish our Whimsy Christmas Biscornu. I have completed all of the stitching and the back stitching as per the chart, and I've cut my fabric 1/4 inch around that back stitch line, so we have a 1/4 inch border, and then I've flipped it over on the back side and I've added a piece of iron-on interfacing that is slightly smaller than this back stitched border. The interfacing allows for a little bit more stability. It will also keep walnut shells from falling through if you're using walnut shells as your filling. And it just protects your stitches a little bit, but you don't want it to interfere with your back stitched border. And I have done that on both of my pieces, my top and my bottom. I have threaded my needle with one strand of the DMC 958, the darker turquoise color. And I am going to start by creating a little knot in my seam allowance. And I'm going to clip that, I'm going to clip that close, but still leave a little bit of a tail. This will all be hidden inside of our seam allowance. So we're basically going to take the very point of your bottom piece and line it up with the middle of your back stitching. Here we go. So I've back stitched, and it's on the chart as well, this little line here that indicates the middle. So we're going to start with that back stitch loop and this corner here and join them together. And what you want to do is stick your needle under that first loop, okay? And then we're going to go under this middle loop. Okay? And then it's basically like whip stitching, but you're just catching that back stitched loop and the next back stitched loop. And pull it snug like so. Now on my piece, I used one strand of thread for all of my stitching, so I'm also using one strand of thread to join my pieces. And this is a little bit fiddly. Yeah, I got that loop. Oops. But we're just going to keep going until we get to this corner. And this corner here should line up with this stitch here. So just take your time and go one stitch at a time. I'm trying to hold it so I can see it and the camera can see it. That can be kind of tricky. And it might be helpful to just kind of finger press your fabric down. Right next to that stitched edge. It might make it go a little bit better. Okay, zoom back in. We have made it to our middle stitch. That's my little back stitch marker for the center. So when I get to that center one, I'm going to take it through the very last stitch on this side. Pull it snug. Go ahead and finger press this again. And now I'm going to go to this side and I'm going to finger press along the stitches of our next side. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this around this corner and continue stitching to the middle. So I'm going to take a stitch through that same loop. This is the one, whoops, this is the one with our back stitch marker. And then I'm going to go through the first loop on our new side. Okay. Then I'm going to go through the next loop and that first loop again. Okay, so that center stitch is going to have 3 whip stitches in it to make that corner nice and pointy. And then we're just going to continue whip stitching down this side. Okay, I've gotten to the corner on my bottom and the middle on my top. So now I'm taking a stitch through that corner. I'm going to go around to the other side on my bottom and finger press. This is going to wrap around this side like so. I'm going to take a stitch from the other side of the corner and then go back to that same middle stitch on the top. And then the first side on the corner to the next stitch. And you're just going to keep going around, catching one stitch at a time. Whip stitching around. This is definitely not a fast process. Slow and steady wins the race. We've come to our next corner. I'm at the midpoint on my bottom and the corner on the top. So just like before, I'm going to finger press this side and do the same stitching at the corner as you did on your other two corners. Keep going until you get to your last side. Okay, so I have stitched all the way around the edge and I have just one section open, and I am going to fill my Biscornu with a mix of polyfill and poly pellets. You could also use walnut shells or whatever you prefer. I'm using polyfill and poly pellets because that's what I have on hand. So anytime you are stuffing something with polyfill, you don't want to just grab a clump from the bag and start shoving it into whatever you want. You want to like fluff it out first. And you will need probably twice as much as you think you'll need. Now, because I'm not filling it entirely with polyfill, this might be enough. Let's see. So it might be helpful if you have something like a bowl or a dish to set it in. I just have this, I use it as decoration in my craft room. It holds a pincushion normally, but we're going to use it to hold our Biscornu up. And I'm just gonna start putting some of this polyfill in here. Make sure we don't lose our thread inside. Okay, now I'm going to take, I have a little funnel from the kitchen, and I've got a bowl of poly pellets here and a little measuring cup, and I'm just going to add them this way. Shake it, push it down. Just whatever it takes to get your little Biscornu filled up. Okay. And I have, this is actually just a double-pointed knitting needle. You'd use a chopstick, whatever you want to just try to smoosh everything around. That's a technical term there, smoosh. Get it as full as you like. Ooh. Okay, so you can see I don't have it full enough yet. You want it to be able to fill up all of your corners. And be nice and firm. So maybe one more scoop of the poly pellets and then the rest with the polyfill. We'll see. Oops. Okay. I think that might be good with the poly pellets. So I'm going to stick a little more polyfill in to finish filling out the top. Now you want to be able to get it stitched closed easily, and you also want enough give to like squish in where the button goes in the center. So I probably don't want to go too much more. Yeah, that's probably good. It's all a matter of what you feel is right. So I'm going to just leave this in this bowl here. And then just continue whip stitching our back stitch loops together. I have just the tiniest opening left to stitch shut. I want to double check. Yes. Whoops. I think my stuffing is good. All right, and I've made it back to my corner. So now we just need to knot it. So I'm going to stick my needle underneath that next loop there. And then I'm not going to pull it all the way through. My loop is twisting, but then you're just going to stick your needle through that loop and pull it tight. I like to do that twice. So we've got 2 little knots. I think that last knot was a little twisted. Okay, then you're going to just stick it into your Biscornu and pull it snug, snip it off. It doesn't really matter where it comes out because that thread will now be hidden inside. You can't see that at all. Okay, now we have our Biscornu all sewn together. That sweet little Merry Christmas on the bottom. I've got polyfill fibers everywhere. Now, I am going to add my button. So I have a few set out here. These might be too big. I'm not sure. I thought the red would look cute, but that's awful large. Then I've got this clear, sparkly one. Let me see if I have something else. Okay, so I've switched it out for 2 of these pink buttons. I think that'll go coordinate nicely with the pink on the presents. So I'm going to take a strand of the 601 and I'm going to double it up. I have this pack of craft needles. Now, this case probably has more than just the 1 pack in it by now, because I've had these forever. But I'm going to take out one of these longer needles. And we're going to see if I can manage to get these 2 strands threaded onto that needle. It's a sewing type needle, so it has a much smaller eye, but hey, I was able to do it. All right. Now I'm going to go through one hole of my button and go through the other hole of my button and then go through my loop. And then I want to just go through the center of my Biscornu. And we're going to push it through as close to the center of the bottom as we can. Okay. Then I have another button for the bottom. Now here comes the tricky part. I'm going to try to push this through. And, oh, looky there. You want it to go through the buttonhole. All right. And I'm going to go down through the other side and try to get it through one of these buttonholes. And I'm going to do that a few times. Each time, now this, I mean, it really does help to have a long enough needle for this. maybe one more. Okay, now this time I'm gonna put my needle through the buttonhole, but I'm like tilting it so my needle does not go through the fabric. And again, pulling tight. And now I'm just gonna twist it around the button a few times. And then we're gonna go we're like trying to floss underneath this button and leaving a loop, and we're gonna do a knot, kind of like we did for the last section of the Biscornu. Again, I like to do that twice if I can. Now I get to rethread my needle. And then, just like before, we're going to stick it through the Biscornu. Doesn't really matter where it comes out because you're going to pull it tight. Trim your thread. And then your thread is gone. And our Biscornu is finished. We have our sweet little Merry Christmas with the holly and candy canes on the bottom, and our whimsical trees and stacks of presents on the top, with our little cross stitches around the edge. I just absolutely love it, and I hope that you do too. Thank you for coming along with me as I show you how to finish your Whimsy Christmas Biscornu. I hope you have a Merry Christmas and you enjoy your little Biscornu in your Christmas decorations for many years to come. Thank you so much. Bye.